What's up everybody, Dark Comitive here. Welcome to the next chapter of this tutorial where we're gonna go into scene assembly, adding trees and that kind of stuff. As you can see, the scene has been updated with a few more objects. I have a ladder, a bench, a sleigh, Santa sleigh. I decided as I was going along, I needed some kind of story just to drive me, to drive my behavior. So I decided this is gonna be Santa's house. So I, thank God that we have an hour of break in brown bag, because I can use that 1 hour lunch break to do some modeling and sculpting and that kind of stuff. So because my time was very limited, I used that that lunch break to model some quick objects. They're not terribly detailed and or nothing like that, but they're detailed enough so from a distance they will look good. So just assigning quick materials to my tree objects before I start duplicating it around, and soon we're gonna go from the point of view of camera and start just making instance copies and just making them look good from camera. So I'm basically literally instance copying all the trees, moving them around. It's the same tree, but I just duplicate it, rotate it, scale it a little bit, position it in interesting way so that it will look a little bit different. And because the tree has a lot of branches and it looks really random, it's perfect opportunity for me to save a lot of time and just basically reuse the same object. Still trying to see if I can use some other type of trees in the scene, but I'm pretty much gonna end up deleting all of them but the one close to the bridge, because they just didn't feel right for me. So yeah, nothing too fancy going on, just trying to think about the composition, trying to think about how can I convey a story, how can I guide the audience to look in the house, adding, taking little boxes and smoothing them, just pushing them around, making them like into like a stone shape, and just adding little details here and there to help me guide, as I said, the audience. A lot of the placement of the objects are done intentionally with certain angles, so when you look at it and when your eye slides across the object, it will lead you to the house. For example, that bridge, I decided to go with a bridge instead of a fallen tree because the support fence and that kind of stuff was perfect opportunity for me to guide the viewer into the house. And then placing a tree next to the camera, next to the bridge on the left side screen of the camera, will just mean that your view is blocked at that point and you will lose interest in that part of the image, and your eyes will slowly start to shift toward the house. To make that even more apparent, at a later stage, I'm going to add a sign on the tree next to the bridge that is pointed into the house, and that is also very intentional, of course. So at this stage, I decided to starting to split up the terrain, because some of the terrain was going to receive a sculpting pass in ZBrush for the snow, because I wanted to have some footprints and tracks where the sleigh was traveling and all this kind of stuff. So instead of subdividing the whole terrain, it will make everything very heavy. I basically decided to just cut it apart and do it that way. To give myself a guidance, I basically took the sculpting brushes in Maya and just started to sculpt a little direction of where should I focus my details when I go in ZBrush, and then I decided to just move the camera a little bit. I'm gonna do this a couple of times. I'm gonna move the camera a couple of times from now on, trying to find the best angle, because I wanted the river to be visible, and now because of the ledge that the snow is making, you don't really see it that well. So once I sculpt everything in ZBrush and bring in Maya, I will do some pushing and pulling of mesh. I'm gonna raise the level of the river up a little bit, and I'm gonna adjust the camera again. And some of my friends who saw the final scene asked me why I'm keeping the rest of the terrain that is not visible from camera, why you're wasting polygons. And the reason is, if you delete that, and if you have renderer like Arnold, which is brute force GI, heavily GI dependent renderer, you will lose a lot of bounce light, and you will have to place a lot more lights to get the same to get the effect that you're going for. So just by keeping a proxy geometry of the mesh in there, even if it's not detailed at all, just by having the snow shader, it will reflect the light and it will behave properly in the scene. So always keep in mind to model stuff behind the camera and off the camera around it, because when you're dealing with renderers like V-Ray and Arnold who actually can do proper GI, it's very important what the camera sees and what the rays bounce off of. So keep that in mind. You don't have to do anything super crazy, super detailed about it, but just enough so you can have some pretty cool bounce lights going on. So it looks like we are getting pretty close with the final composition at this point. For the snow, I'm still using the same old school technique of just duplicating the geometry and just moving it up a little bit so it looks like it's resting. Because if you think about it, that's how snow works. This is a very, very old technique. It was shown to me by Seth Thompson, brilliant environment artist from Blizzard, and it just for illustrations, even animations, this kind of stuff, if you're not doing super close-ups and anything specific or realistic, this technique is still very, very valuable. So big shout out to Seth about this technique. I'm abusing it every time I have a snow scene. So yeah, from now on it's all gonna be testing lighting, adding more objects. At some point I'm gonna have to go and add snow on the objects that I modeled off screen. So like all this fence and benches and the wooden boxes and the barrel and the sleigh, they will all have to be covered in snow, to some degree, because they are outside, of course. So I'm gonna have to do that, but because you saw me how I do snow, I'm probably gonna skip that again. I don't want to repeat myself, talking the same thing over and over again, because it's not beneficial for everyone. It's just gonna make my videos longer, and I feel like I'm wasting your time by doing this kind of stuff. So hopefully in the next video we're gonna get a little break from modeling, and we're gonna do some lighting and shading. I decided to go with daylight setup, so I'm probably gonna discard all the lighting that I've done. I'm just gonna throw it away and start fresh, start clean. Um, so so I don't have any lights left behind, by accident. And doing shaders in Arnold is super easy. They work really well off the box. So making a metal is just a matter of sliding the metallus slider, lowering the diffuse or piping texture into it, and then tweaking the reflection and the glossiness sliders to get a certain amount of look. Um, for example, chrome or aluminium or titanium or that kind of stuff. So that's about it for this chapter. I'm gonna finish assigning the shaders, so we can break up the house into different materials, so it's gonna look a bit more interesting when we're rendering it. And thanks for tuning in, guys, again. If you have any questions or comments, please write them down in the comment section below. I will try to answer as soon as possible. And yeah, again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next chapter. Bye.